Hey everyone, it's Brian, your handy dandy realtor from the city of Windsor, financial advisor, financial coach. Sitting here at the campground, a little bit scruffy today. Got my little Hawaii cap on that I bought when I was out in Hawaii. Kind of relaxed here today as the Bank of Canada has messed with us again. It's not overnight. The Bank of Canada just announced that they're going to be raising interest rates by 1 whole percentage point by tomorrow. That changes everything. Every raise of interest rates. And the reason for that is that, in essence, the government said that we're going to raise interest rates by 3% because there's a 2% built-in threshold of stress tests that everybody has to go through. So when they raise interest rates by 1%, it's actually like raising interest rates by 3% because you still have to qualify. So interest rates right now are 5.09% on a 25-year, 5-year ammo. They are now going to be tomorrow probably about 5.75%, which means that it's very, very difficult for the average Canadian to qualify for an expensive house, which means that more people will be moving to Windsor, which means that I'm going to be crazier busier when I get back from vacation here at the campground. So at the end of the day, we need to be cautious of our rate increases. And there's something I wanted to talk to you about a little bit as well too on this video. I'm a huge fan of Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey talks about get out of debt, get debt free. When you're debt free, then you can take on some better debt, like a camper, if that's important to you. To us, it was important. We're going to always have this camper, so we have a little bit of debt on that camper. Now, we bought it a couple years ago, or a year and a half ago, and now suddenly these campers are worth massive amounts of money. No justification for it, going from $50,000 to $75,000. Will it go down? Sure, it'll go down as well too, but being at a campground in the middle of COVID sure is nice. Being at a campground during the week sure is nice. But let's talk a little bit about that debt-free kind of concept. So Dave Ramsey has a saying that he talks about, live like no one else so that later you can live like no one else. And I've always been a fan of that. I've always worked very, very hard. I've always worked as much overtime as possible, paying off debt, getting out of debt. Debt is not your friend, because we had no clue that COVID was going to come in, and we had no clue that everything was going to go sailing in value, and that inflation was going to be killing us. Yesterday, I went out and spent $750 on a few little items. I got back to the campground, and I'm like, geez, try owning one of these things and needing a little bit of things for it. It becomes expensive pretty darn quick. But we've got everything that we need for it now, so we should be good for a long time. But at the end of the day, by not having any debt, by not having a mortgage, when things were really good, working as much as I possibly could to get everything all paid off, is where I'm at right now. So I can be here at the campground during the week when nobody else is here and frequently own the place. There's nobody here, maybe 5 or 10 people. Some of our friends down the way who are going to be coming for dinner tonight. But the way that I did that was in 2008, when things were really bad in Windsor, I sold a house in LaSalle. I sold it, just said, heck with it. And the realtor that had come in, John Lopez, who's still a friend of mine, had said to me, he said, Brian, you're not going to be able to get that kind of money out of it. And so I said, John, bump up the commission. Bump up the commission to 3.5% for the competing realtor, and we'll for sure get this house sold. So I paid 6.5%, got the house sold for the number that I wanted out of it, took that money. We ended up renting at Portofino for a little while, for a year at Portofino, and then realized we were going to stay in Windsor. I was in university at the time, finishing up my degree in finance at the University of Windsor. Realized we were going to stay in Windsor, so then we went over and we bought a house on Ypres in South Walkerville. I'm going to have a beautiful listing coming up in South Walkerville in the next month and a half as well too. That'll be about $580,000. And so at the end of the day, though, that house that we bought, we stayed there, and then it was time for renovations. And so then we looked at, okay, should we build new or should we renovate? And at the time, I could build a brand new townhouse for $260,000. And I listened to my mom. My mom said, Brian, when are you ever going to have a chance to build another new house? So I took out a little bit of debt. There was a little bit of debt. We sold the house on ePray ourselves without a realtor because we needed every dime we possibly could to make the new deal work. So we built the townhome from the ground up. We did the things in the townhome that we felt were important at the time because we were planning on staying in the townhome for a very long time, probably the rest of our lives. Think about that. How many people want to live in a house for the rest of their life? Well, we need to start thinking that way. My grandmother lived at 1502 Albert Street for almost her whole life. They sold the house and moved to an apartment when they were ready. So at the end of the day, those kinds of things become super, super, super important. So the house that we bought for $260,000, we built the way that we needed it to be built. We then turned around and it's now worth $800,000. So we've got all of this wonderful stuff called equity. I don't use the equity to buy this. I don't. All right. The equity is just sitting there. It's really more for a health thing if I ever have a health thing because I plan on working the rest of my life. Plan on always helping people. It's a blast to help people. The message will always be the same. Whether I'm 70 years old or 50 years old, it will always be the same message. Get debt free. That way you don't have to worry about rogue governments. You don't have to worry about Trudeau not understanding what he's doing to crush the Canadian people. You don't have to worry about Joe Biden, who's coming in and just annihilating everything in the United States of America and changing it around rapidly so that you don't even understand what's going on. It's like, how is everything suddenly so bad? And why does everything need to be changed so much? You don't have to worry about those kinds of things when you don't have debt, when you don't own money to the bank. You have all kinds of flexibility to be able to come to the campground. So at the end of the day, there's a thing I wanted to share with everybody, and that is those folks in Riverside or those folks that bought their house 8, 9, 10 years ago, they have massive equity like what I have. You could take if you owe money on your house and you're worried about the interest rate going to 6% or 7% on your renewal, because that's what the government is going to be doing to you. The only way to be able to stop that from happening is to take that $700,000 house that you have right now, sell it, because you only owe about $190,000 roughly on it. So then go over to the 1100 block of Lincoln, or go over, I've got a beautiful listing that's going to be coming up in South Walkerville, like I said, about 570. Take that money that you have and buy a different house that's more affordable, that you can take your equity and be as close to debt-free as possible. Limit your debt. When you limit your debt, you have more earnings to do other things with. And if you're working overtime, you better be using that money to get debt-free. So that's what I did because I was worried about rogue governments doing this kind of crap that we're in the middle of right now. I don't have any control over any of that stuff that they do. So since I have no control over it, the only way that I could control it was to be as debt-free as humanly possible. That's why we just came back from Las Vegas. Did we worry about the money we spent in Las Vegas? No, that trip was paid for. Are we worrying about the money that we spend here at the campground? No, this money is paid for. I just went out yesterday and spent $700 at the camper store, but we've got everything now. I think that everything that we're going to need for this camper for a very, very, very long time. So it's all good. But that $700,000 raised ranch in Riverside, you can sell, take your equity, and buy a beautiful house on Lincoln. Do it for 4 or 5 years like what we did over in South Walkerville. It was just 4 or 5 years. It was all about the concept of being able to save ourselves from a Chrysler plant closing at the time. And then as things got better and things got better in the city of Windsor, then I was like, okay, now things are better. Now we can go out and buy a different house and take that equity and then build the new house. So it's all good. If you want to get debt free, if you want to start living your life like nobody else, you have to start today by living your life like nobody else. You have to, and people will look at you like you're weird. Why in the hell would you sell your house in Riverside and move to a house on Lincoln? Why would you do that? To live your life like nobody else when you're 55, when you're 60. That's why you do it. If you want to be like everybody else and not be able to afford anything because you're paying 6 or 7 or 8% in mortgage 3 years from now because of this rogue government just going and crushing everything like a bug, then by all means, stay doing what you're doing because it'll work that way. If you want to be different, then be different. And if you'd like to have some conversations around trying to get debt-free, if you'd like to have some conversations around, could I possibly, if you'd like to go out and see some $450,000 or $500,000 houses or $550,000 houses, just to see if it's even doable to do that. Let's go see some houses on a Saturday or a Sunday or on a Monday or a Tuesday or a Wednesday or a Thursday or a Friday. I work 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I'm helping people all over Canada move to Windsor. There's tons of people coming in buying the $400,000 and $500,000 houses because that's what they qualify for. And I just had another one just today. Another realtor reached out. Hey, there's a client that wants to move to Windsor. Can you help them? Sure, absolutely, yes. I have another client, Quentin, who called me on Monday. They're coming into the city of Windsor from Vancouver, for gosh sakes. And they're looking for no more than a $300,000 house. Go figure. Do we have them? Yes, we do. So it's all possible to do whatever it is that you need to do for you. We can look at some of those equities, but it starts with conversation. It starts with all of that, just having me in to just chat. We'll sit down at your kitchen table, have a little chat. I'll give you some different options so that you can decide what to do. But for now, this is Brian from the campground signing off. Thanks for tuning in. If I can help you in any way, don't hesitate to reach out, 519-995-6145, or email me, text me to that number, or email me to bprice4567@gmail.com. Happy to help. Welcome to Windsor. Great place to live. Great place to raise your family. Have a great day. Bye-bye.